First, I just want to say I've spoken at several other... I hope I didn't knock anything. Oh, my bad. I've spoken at several other relays over the past few years throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I went to college in Pennsylvania, and obviously I live here. But this one's very special. Tonight, I'm happy to say that it feels great to be home. My name's Gerard Longo, and I am a 2005 graduate of West Morris Central. Thank you. Now, when I was asked to speak at the Luminaria ceremony at this year's relay, I found it very fitting. The purpose of Luminaria is to remember, and needless to say, this is a place where I have a lot of memories. I remember, for instance, what it was like to be a student here. I remember some of the happiest times of my life participating in the school's choral and theater programs. I remember that this very field we're standing on is the hallowed ground where I and 14 other members of my senior class were able to sow the seeds for our 2004 state championship win. Sorry, amend them, guys. Sorry. And that stuff's all nice to remember, and I have taken so many important lessons on from each one of those activities into college and now into adult life. Perhaps no lesson is more important, though, than the reason I'm standing here before you tonight. I remember that I fought my defining battle here, and I still fight it to this day. That battle is the one against cancer. I was just heading into my sophomore year here, and after a summer football practice, I was coming down from that field back there. I noticed a strange small lump which appeared inside of my left ring finger. And carefree as I was back then, I never thought anything of it. I figured it was, at most, a calcium deposit that could either be popped out or would just go away on its own. However, as time went on, this lump was not going away on its own. Instead, it began to grow and become discolored throughout that fall and winter. It was in early 2003 that I first recognized it as a legitimate issue and decided to go see a doctor. And I saw a few different doctors, and none of them could determine on their own what this lump was without getting inside to see it. Therefore, after finding a plastic surgeon, I decided to have a biopsy done on March 21st of that year. With legitimate worry beginning to enter my mind about what this thing inside my finger could have been, I spent the next 10 days before going back to the office examining it and trying to figure out what it was for myself. So on March 31st, I go back to the doctor's office. And I was actually feeling pretty confident that day, feeling pretty good. I figured it would, then I would go into his office, find out it was nothing major, have it popped out, and resume life as planned. There was no way then that I could have prepared myself for what was about to happen. And a man by the name of Dr. J.J. Kaiser was the man who performed the biopsy, and he informed me that this thing inside my finger was a malignant tumor, and that to ensure my future safety, my left ring finger would have to be amputated. Dr. Kaiser told me that I did have one thing going for me, and that the tumor was enclosed or encapsulated within a sheath of skin. That left open the possibility that it had not yet spread. However, he also told me the tumor needed to be addressed immediately, as it was an epithelioid sarcoma, which is a very dangerous form of cancer that would have been untreatable with radiation, would have spread very quickly if the capsule of skin were ever to break. Operating on it alone, he said, was a huge risk in itself, and from that I was able to do the math and assume that if the tumor had already begun to spread, then my chances of survival were pretty low. And there was so much bad news coming at me at once that I almost couldn't take being in the room. In fact, I considered walking out. I saw the looks of shock and terror on the faces of my mother and sister, who were in the room with me, and I couldn't understand how or why this could happen to me. There I was, exactly 3 weeks removed from my 16th birthday, and I had believed cancer before then to be a risk which should not concern me, given my youth. However, it was at that exact moment that I learned that cancer affects everybody, young and old. That was one thing I had going for me, though. I had youth on my side. While initially I questioned whether I had the ability in me to win a battle of this magnitude, I certainly had the energy and the willpower. This was important to keep intact because I would be taking the ride nearly every day from right here in Long Valley all the way down to Philadelphia to meet with doctors, go through tests to see where, if anywhere, the cancer had spread, and to map out a plan for surgery. All of these things were nerve-wracking, but for me, the tests themselves weren't the worst part. Awaiting the test results, sometimes for days, was the most nerve-wracking part of the ordeal. The waiting just gives you a powerlessness that you can't help but to feel, and you know that your fate could be in the hands of a lab test and that there's nothing you could do to stop what might be coming. At the same time, I did have some of the best care imaginable. Dr. Earl Fliegler was my hand surgeon down in Philly, and Dr. Jonathan Powell was my oncologist, and they truly were, and are, I believe, the absolute best in the world at what they do. They made sure no stone was left unturned in attempting to beat this growing problem inside my left ring finger, and their care allowed me to try to fight this battle with confidence, at least on the outside. I continued to go to school and attempt to take care of business on the days when I wouldn't go to Philadelphia amid questions and rumors of what was really going on. Friends and family alike had convinced me not to abandon my religious faith, and it seemed to me as more and more people begun including me in their prayers that this fight appeared to swing more and more in my favor. And that proved true just days before my surgery when we got the good news we had been hoping, praying, and waiting for. Traveling through the hallways of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, or CHOP as it's known, my family and I were stopped in passing by Dr. Powell. He told us that all of the full-body medical tests and scans had come back clean. Suddenly, a big cloud of doubt, fear, and anger had been lifted, and I felt the most relieved I ever have in my life. This meant that the cancer had not spread. All I would have to do would be go in for surgery and get this one tumor removed. And yes, I'd still be losing the finger, but in the grand scheme of things, I considered it to be a minor loss, because the rest of me would hopefully be here for years to come. For the first time, I felt that I was definitively winning the battle. April 15th, 2003 was the day. It's a day that I consider to be my secondary birth date. It was the first day of the rest of my life, as it was the day my recovery from the ordeal began. Also, I'm humbled to say that I'm over 9 years removed and counting from this date, and I hope to have several more secondary birthdays to come. Thank you. So after a successful 8-hour surgical procedure on April 15th to amputate my left ring finger, take the lymph nodes out for a biopsy, and reconstruct my hand so I could come back and play for Coach Henley back there, I lay there in recovery with no real idea as to what my next step would be. Still, though I was extremely groggy, I was alert, and I noticed the weather that day. It was an unseasonably warm, sunny 80 degrees in Philadelphia. My favorite kind of weather, a day just like today, and after 2 weeks of questioning, the sun would shine brightly on that day after all. So from there, I looked to rehabilitate and use my new lease on life to its fullest extent. In a few short weeks, I was going through my first physical therapy sessions, and I looked again to God to assist me in my recovery. I still had a goal to be able to play my junior season in full for the Wolfpack, even though my projected recovery was slated for around 12 months. That would have taken me to April 2004, and in fact, it was questioned at first if this would physically stop me from playing altogether. So in spite of this, I made sure I never missed a therapy session, and as a result, I was cleared for full contact drills in early August of 2003, just before we put on pads to cut my recovery time down to just under 4 months. It is my hope that this serves as proof that as long as you keep your hope, faith, and dreams intact in everything you do, we are all capable of overcoming the greatest of obstacles. This battle taught me many more life lessons. I learned much about my own inner strength and capabilities. Before this ordeal, I was shy, introverted, and unconfident in my abilities. However, it was because of this battle with cancer that I learned to take risks and fight all of life's battles, big and small. I learned that if we don't take action, then we are the ones who ultimately lose out in the end. It taught me to truly live life and to be grateful for every chance we get in this world. To be grateful for every person that comes into our lives. Because if we don't have these chances or these people, we can't learn, we can't grow, and we can't further ourselves. I've realized through this fight that I have a power to reach people and to inspire, and tonight I hope I've been able to do that. And there's... Thanks. You know, there's not a day that goes by where I don't remember, in the spirit of this ceremony, to thank God for the second chance I was lucky enough to receive. There's not a day that goes by where I don't remember my fellow survivors as great inspirations of hope in this world. There's not a day where I don't remember those lost to this disease and their loved ones. There's not a day that goes by that I don't remember cancer and what it has done to me and my loved ones. That is why I continue to fight this fight against cancer, because it is the correct fight against a disease that claims too many lives too soon. It's a fight where we all must band together, and most importantly, it's a fight that we all can win. Each of us has a story. We all have encountered this disease in one way or another, and this Luminaria ceremony means something unique to each of us. Along that thread, each bag along this track represents someone else's story, or maybe our own. It represents the light that person has brought into our lives, into the world. And that light represents the hope that one day we will have found a cure for this disease, and that we won't have to feel the pain of losing a loved one to cancer. That we won't have to watch our loved ones battle so courageously.
Thank you.
Tonight, we remember these people, and we vow to win this battle for each of them. Through this Luminaria ceremony, we unite as one. Thank you.